Welcome to the S.T.A.R Podcast.
Wow. S.T.A.R Podcast.
Welcome to the S.T.A.R Podcast, hosted by Nat. Each week, we share tips and stories from safety, trucking, and recruitment, and everything in between. Listen now.
Welcome back to another episode. Today is a little different. We actually have a guest host. So Adam with Northern Academy is joining us today, and he is going to be interviewing our guest, who is Jim Park. And Jim has had a huge career in the truck driving industry as being a truck driver. He was on the radio, but now he is a journalist. He writes for Today's Trucking, Truck News, and he actually has his own podcast that you can find at trucknewstalk.com. He just has had a really huge career. He's very interesting to listen to, and Adam asks some really great questions because Adam is in the trucking industry himself. He's a truck driver. He's a truck trainer. So he has really great questions. Jim has really great answers. And I basically just sit here and listen, but I found it very interesting. So I hope you listen now. Welcome.
Okay. Well, I hope I can answer all your questions, and thanks. Glad to be here.
But yeah, we watch quite a bit of your videos here in class when I'm doing theory with the students. And that one of the ones that we watch every course is it's about 5 years ago, where you were testing, doing some downhill braking out in BC someplace. With a heavier load depending on the weight and stuff, trying to utilize the engine brake and save on the. Yeah, I don't remember what the video was exactly called, but it was something about trucking in the mountains and stuff, right?
Yeah, that was a 4-part series.
Yeah, that's right.
With Andy Roberts at Mountain.
That's right.
Transport Institute. Yeah, it was mountain driving. We called that.
Yeah, that was really
really
interesting. Yeah, so we're going to have a lot of viewers that potentially are watching this that don't know much about your background and what you have done and what you are doing today. So I thought I would start off with a general introduction. You can introduce yourself. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll kind of piggyback from there.
Perfect. Sounds like a great first date.
Yes. So if you want to tell us where, when it comes to just the trucking alone, where did that all start for you?
I started driving back in 1978.
Okay.
I was working for a swimming pool delivery company. They had a flatbed truck, and they used to put the above-ground pools on the back, and we'd go out and deliver them. On one run, the driver broke his arm, and had no way back. I had to take him to the hospital and everything.
Oh.
So when I got back, the boss said, well, you got it back in one piece. You want to do that again tomorrow? I said, okay. And thus began my trucking career. That was, like I said, 78. I got my Class A in 80, I think. Okay. Working for a grocery company. I used to get my 44 hours in by Thursday, and I'd ride with the guys in the tractor trailers on the Friday, soak up everything they knew. I guess I spent 2 or 3 months doing that, and then went for my tests and passed. Surprise.
So it sounds like it's something that you kind of defaulted to. Is trucking something that you already had an interest in, that you wanted to get involved with?
Well, when I was a kid, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years old, walking through my neighborhood one day, this Beacon's moving van pulled up behind me on the street and said, "Hey, son, do you happen to know where such and such a street is?" So, yeah, go up here, turn left, turn right. He says, "Hop in, I'll give you a lift. You can show me where it is." Okay. So I did. This was like 1970, right? So you weren't afraid of hopping into trucks with strangers.
That's right, yeah.
But it was so cool being up in the cab. It's all gears and gauges and dials and buttons and stuff. I thought, wow, this is great. So I don't know if that had some influence on me, but I think it did. But that was a kind of a cool moment. But I actually went to college as a theater technician, sound and lighting technician for theater. Yeah. At the time, that wasn't going anywhere career-wise. At least I didn't think so. So I bailed from that and started driving again.
Two very vastly different professions. Yeah,
quite.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I read a little bit about, dove into your bio a little, and it showed that you had broken a 2 million mile mark at some point as well, and that you also became an owner operator.
Yeah, I had 2 separate stints as an owner operator. Most of the time was spent on company trucks, and just dead reckoning on the mileage. I figured I drove for almost 20 years before I gave it up. So 100,000 miles a year, that's 2 million, give or take.
Yeah.
I might be a little shy, I might be a little over, but I just tell folks 2 million because it's a nice round number. But I think it's realistic.
Yeah, for sure. So when we talk about what you're doing now, and if you could share with everybody what would be the title that you would give yourself as far as your career here now?
I'm a journalist now.
Okay.
I call myself an equipment editor because I do spend more time writing about nuts and bolts than, hearts and brains.
Right.
So I have this knack, I think, people have told me anyway, of being able to take relatively complex subjects, engineering-wise, and break them down into understandable English.
Okay.
So I've made a pretty successful career out of explaining, concepts like that to truck drivers and helping them, understand their equipment and get better fuel economy and know how transmissions work and engine brakes work and brakes work and all that sort of stuff. That's really where I think I shine, is on the equipment side.
And this was a career that you developed on your own?
How I got into writing, I honestly don't know. I mean, I was crappy in English in high school. My English teacher, if she could see me now, would I'm sure be turning over in her grave. But all the years I was driving, I was a chronic letter writer, to letters to the editor. I was always writing to Rolf Lockwood at Today's Trucking here in Canada, and Steve Sturgis, who was with Roadstar magazine in the U.S. And I think I developed an ability to write because I listened to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of audiobooks while I was driving. So I think the pattern of speech and writing kind of wore off in my head. Like I said, I have no background as a writer. I was crappy in English class. I don't know a conjunction from a dangling participle, but I seem to know how to write. So I just rode with it. All those years of writing letters to the editor, some point, one of them asked me if I could pen an article for them. And the first article I ever wrote was about batteries, for heaven's sakes. Okay. And they said, well, that's good. Can you do another one? And eventually that turned into a paid gig. And this was sometime around 96, 95. And it's just about the time I was looking to get out of driving. I'd had enough. 20 years was, a long time.
Yep.
And I was getting lazy and starting to, I won't say take chances, but not being quite as diligent as I once was. And I recognized that this is a dangerous place to be. So I made a conscious decision to sort of get out of trucking at some point, but I had no way out that I could see anyway, except maybe becoming a driving instructor or moving into safety or something like that. Right. So when this writing thing kind of surfaced, I was all over it, like white on rice. I just said, I got to make this happen. And eventually it did. You may remember Highway Star magazine from back in the 2000s. They hired me in 1999. That was my second writing gig, actually. I started with RPM Canada. Worked for them for a year and a half, and as I was transitioning from driver to writer, obviously I had to maintain my income, so I was working 3 days a week at Air Products as a company driver, down from 4 days. They gave me a day off. I was doing some writing for RPM Canada, and I also hosted the all-night road show on 820 Cham Radio for about a year and a half. And that made all the income, meet the demands. Eventually, when Highway Star took me on, they paid me well enough. I didn't have to do all that other stuff, so I just retired from driving in 99, basically, and became a professional full-time journalist.
That's really interesting. Very cool. I'll tell you a bit about myself. I got my license actually because I had no idea what I wanted to do in college or university. I'm 43 years old now. And when I graduated high school, I was at a loss for what type of career I wanted to, or what endeavor I wanted to get into. So I thought, maybe I'd get my truck license, and I've always enjoyed driving, and I would do that temporarily while I think about what it is I want to do as a career for the rest of my life. Actually, I got my license at this school. I think it was 2000, and I might be wrong in saying this. I think it was around 2003 or 4. And I started with Manitoulin Transport under the TPS group. Then I went into companies like Laidlaw out of Guelph, and then I worked for a local ore haulage company here in town. And then Challenger Motor Freight was one of the greatest gigs that I had out of Cambridge. And that's when I started getting stateside. And I still hadn't decided what I wanted to do in life. But as soon as I started traveling stateside, and I'm talking like east to west, right from the Carolinas to Los Angeles and stuff, everywhere, that's when I really fell in love with it. And I thought that this is it. There's nothing else that I want to do. Like, I can't believe that I'm getting paid to listen to music and drink coffee and drive and check out all these new places and stuff. And what better way is there to make money? And I enjoyed it so much that my ex-wife and I actually left our apartment, sold practically everything we owned, grabbed the dog, and we lived in the truck for about 1.5 years or so. And actually, in retrospect, that might be why she's my ex-wife now. It was close quarters for 1.5 years. But then I had a small stint where I was driving local city buses here in Sudbury for about 4 years. And then I wasn't really enjoying it too much, and I was missing getting back into the truck. And I stumbled across an ad for a trainer on a classified here in Sudbury, and I went and applied for that and showed the fella what I know and what I remember of my training and my experience and stuff. And so he kind of got my foot in the door, and we're going on about 15 years ago. So now I've been actively that was 1 year at a different school, but here I've been at NAT now. This November will be 14 years.
Okay.
That I've been here training now. So I've actually been training longer than I was a driver. And when it comes to things like shifting and backing away, I tell all the students that I do it better from outside the truck, and I can back you up better outside the truck than I could if I was sitting in the driver's seat. But I absolutely love what I do, and I'm a huge promoter for highway safety, and that I have some social media stuff. I do a lot of TikToks and discuss a lot of the regulations around trucking and how to just maintain a safe vehicle and promote driver safety and educate anybody who may be interested in it. And so yeah, I really think I found my passion, and I'm glad that I didn't move on to anything else and I stayed in this industry, because my job is not a job. I love coming to work, and I've even come into work on my holidays. So I love being here. So
trucking's like that. It gets under your skin somehow.
It sure does, yeah, for sure. Or on the side of truck safety, one of the questions I wanted to ask is, now this is what, 78 till now, we're talking, what's that, 50s?
Almost 50 years.
Almost 50 years, yeah. Melt, 10 years almost now since Melt started. How do you feel about it?
I've had a lot of discussions about this with people who know more about it than I do. On the surface, I don't like it. I think it dumbed down the training, and it opened doors to allow the training to get even dumber than it was. But I've also been told that when Melt is delivered properly, it's a good program.
Right.
So I guess it really depends on the school, the instructors, how motivated the students are. Yeah. But it seems that under Melt, we've been able to take shortcuts to the Class A that we were never able to do in the past. At least that's the way it seems. So yeah. I may not be totally accurate on that, but I think when you take a driving course that is, 200 hours, pick a number or more, you're going to learn more than you possibly could in 105.
Right.
So what are they not getting in that 105-hour program?
Right.
I understand that it's entry-level training. That's fine. I accept that. But the industry, who was asking for Melt, let it fall on its face by not providing stage 2 in the driver's training, the finishing training. Yeah, they kept saying, well, we want experienced drivers. Well, you're not getting an experienced driver out of a Melt program. Yeah. And if you, Mr. or Mrs. Carrier, won't finish that driver's training, where's this person going to go?
Right.
You won't hire them, but you won't train them. So to me, that made no sense whatsoever, to not have a mechanism in place that I wouldn't say required carriers to hire these students, but certainly gave them incentive to do it.
Yeah. The having been, the trainer in both circumstances, I started around 2012. So 5 years later is when Melt came in 2017, and now from 2017, to present. So I've had a good taste of both. And what I found was that the idea behind Melt was good. I understood. getting more involved with the schedule and being more safety conscious when it comes to inspecting the vehicle and the roadworthiness of the vehicle, making it mandatory that they have so many hours behind the wheel and whatnot, which was all stuff that we were giving them beforehand. But the testing criteria has made it relatively difficult enough, and especially with some of the inspection criteria and the allowable room for error that they're allowed, and in the backing as well. If we have somebody who does fail the program, it usually tends to lean towards the backing side, because it is a difficult concept to try and learn, especially for somebody who's not familiar with the concept of truck and trailer. So I like the idea of it, but I find that it's created a level of difficulty that doesn't allow a trainer or anybody who's having some kind of an influence towards the students and whatnot to show them a lot of the real world aspects of trucking, because it's almost like we get into this mindset like we don't have time for that. We have to focus on this right now for that to get that pass, right? Yeah. And I think that kind of would piggyback off of what you had said as well, is that how you said it's entry level, right? So it's just to put a bit of a foundation in there, which is going to be the license itself, which is that foundation, but then it has to be, the experience builds on top of that, right?
Yeah.
And where do we get that? So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I would like to see, maybe a revision of it in order to, I guess, fall more into like the real world aspect of training. I remember before Melt, we would train drive test examiners, and we had done probably at least a dozen maybe, and they would send them in for about a 2-week crash course. And what a lot of students had a hard time with is if they knew this, or they were part of the same group that drive test examiner was in. Usually we kind of did like a one-on-one thing, but it was tough for them to understand, or I guess be okay with the fact that this person who took a 2-week crash course to get their AZ in order to test people on their AZ, so that person who took 2 weeks now has the power to give you, who just took 6 weeks of training, your license, right?
Yep.
So there's definitely some good, some bad, and whatnot that all has to. I mean, I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but changes are definitely needed. So like you said, that when it was time to get out of the truck after 20 years and segue into something else, I think every driver at some point would agree that there's been a change in the industry that is maybe not for them, and they're moving on to something else. But anyways, I always try to err on the positive of things anyway.
Yeah.
So,
it's getting harder nowadays, though, to tell you the truth.
And especially with social media, because everybody's got one of these things in their hand, and as soon as they see something, whether it be it's in the ditch or it's in the guardrail or it's sideways in a rock cut someplace, or it's an accident on the highway or a rear ending of some kind, it just gets blasted around social media. So it makes everybody else, it is scary out there. Training is something that I try and take very seriously. I've done a lot of the in-class theory. I do all the air brake construction, and I'm always preaching, truck safety and that. So lately I've been trying to get myself into the full truck and trailer to teach in truck again, because I was doing a lot of the in-class stuff, and I kind of want to practice what I preach, right? I want to get into the truck and be able to show these students firsthand what it is I was talking about in class. I have another question.
Sure.
In your opinion, why is it that we have graduated licensing for the smallest of vehicles, our little motorcycles and our cars and whatnot, in order for newer drivers to build experience in that? Why would you think they would never implement some kind of graduated licensing system in the commercial class?
Because the industry didn't want it. This goes back to the earlier mid-2000s. I was at Highway Star at the time writing about issues like this, and the issue of graduated licensing came up, and I recall a statement from a with the OTA at the time, David Bradley. I'm only paraphrasing here. I can't quote him all that long ago, but he said something to the effect that it would be too difficult for carriers to roster drivers onto certain types of trucks. So if you had somebody with a year experience who was supposed to be on a tandem and a triaxle load came up, that would just be really inconvenient for the carrier to try and sort out the dispatch, which kind of made sense. But I think the OTA, I could be wrong about this, but I think they've kind of changed their tune on that now and are singing a slightly different song about it. But it would still be a very difficult thing to do. And I'm not sure how successful or how much of a difference it would make. If you're driving a 5-axle tandem or a tridem, you got more weight involved, but the vehicle is principally the same.
Right.
Where you need to draw a line is when you get into the multi-axle trailers here in Ontario, and certainly trains. I don't think anybody with less than 2 years experience should be pulling a B train. That's just my opinion. Weight-wise, I think you can probably work your way up from a tandem to a tridem to a quad within a year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that could be done internally with a carrier. I don't know why it isn't, or maybe it is. But I really think that the industry needs to look at the kind of equipment they're putting inexperienced drivers out on. Yeah. And in some cases, I think, especially when you get out west with your maybe your second trip through the Rockies, the first one you made on a tandem, lightly loaded. Next time you're going through with a tridem, up to 120 something. It's a different experience. So if you don't have any training or updates on you when you try something like that, you can get yourself into a pile of trouble.
Yeah, that's one of the discussions that I usually leave to like an open forum here in class with some of the students. Is if you look at the G1 and G2 and the M1 and M2 graduate licensing systems, it's all based on a series of restrictions that allow you, or they let you, or they call it. They reduce some of these restrictions with the more experience you get after that one. Mm-hmm. So, and that was kind of the same answer that I would have, is that in what kind of restrictions could you place on a commercial license that wouldn't, federal wide cause a bottlenecking of the industry? Right? If you have 50,000 truck drivers in Canada retire, quit, or die over the next year, and then that next year comes and you have hypothetically 50,000 A1 drivers that have just gotten their fresh new license. Mm-hmm. All of these carriers and across the country are used to maximizing load and maximizing freight and how far they can go and whatnot. Somebody shows up with a resume with a Class A1 license on it, the first idea is going to be, well, there's nothing I can do with you. Like, you don't suit the type of haulage and the type of movement that I have to do in order to make money, right? And, so yeah, I think it would bottleneck the industry for sure. Because what restrictions would you place? Like, how much weight can you haul? How far can you go? Can you utilize your full 13 or 14-hour day? There's no restriction that I can see being placed that wouldn't cause a bottlenecking.
Well, I think the only reasonable way to do that would be to limit the weight, as I suggested, because at the end of the day, if you still had a load to move from Toronto to Vancouver and all the experienced drivers were gone, you could put that load on a tandem, right? And some equipment they were familiar with, and just park the triaxle against the fence until you've got experienced people to drive it. Yeah. And when I started, a straight truck was the way into the industry. I had 2 years experience on straight trucks before I got my Class A. So I knew what a truck was. I knew what weight was. I knew, the vehicle dynamics and the handling of the thing. Yeah. Well, I had a good sense of it anyway. So getting into a tractor trailer wasn't that big a leap for me. But jumping out of a Toyota Prius, into a Cascadia with a 4-axle trailer behind you, that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, for sure. We when we discuss things like following distance in class, we talk about how the Highway Traffic Act says you have to maintain a minimum of 60 meters and 200 feet in between vehicles at a speed of over 60 kilometers an hour. And I said, by the time you see the truck in front of you's brake lights come on, you have to you got to go through your perception time, your reaction time, and your brake lag time, and then your overall stopping distance. And I said, well, what if the guy in front of you is hauling potato chips and you're hauling potatoes? So very vastly differences in weight and whatnot. That's going to cause that reduction in space so much more quickly. I have another question here, and I tried to write it down as clear as I could. So now you said you are an equipment editor, right?
That's my title, yeah.
Okay. And as a past driver, do you agree or endorse some of the new safety features that are installed in trucks, whether it be like blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise, digital mirrors, collision warning systems? Do you find that it's taking away from like the driver's full control of their surroundings and atmosphere? Like, is it like people call them nannies or driver assistance technologies? What's your opinion on that?
I guess you have to look at each one and analyze what it's supposed to do and ask why it's there. I think quite a bit of what we have now is somebody in engineering came up with an idea, handed it to marketing, and they said, yeah, we can sell this. I don't think the industry was asking for too many of the safety features that we have now. Right. I mean, the pedestrian and blind spot detection systems on trucks now, no arguing that they can be useful. I can remember when Eaton first came out with a system called VORAD. This was going back into the early aughts and 90s. They used to call it the guardrail detector.
Okay.
Going down the road, every time you pass something metal, this thing would go off, which is kind of what it was designed to do, to alert you to something on your right-hand side. But it never stopped beeping. So they had to learn to dial that down and sort of adjust the algorithms a little bit so that it wasn't set off by everything that's, went by that was made of metal.
Yeah.
And we have the same problem today in varying degrees with some of the forward-looking collision mitigation systems. They've been known to be triggered by overhead signs, for example.
Yeah.
Which it's quite a jarring experience when all of a sudden your brakes apply, like hard, in the middle of nowhere for absolutely no reason. Or worse, on slippery road, if that were to happen.
Yeah.
That could be quite an experience. So aside from the, technical refining and tuning that still needs to be done, this is a sad thing to have to say, but with the caliber of driver that is on the road today, I think we need those systems.
Right.
If we go back to our generation, yours and mine and other guys like us, gray-haired, graybeards, I think we had a different understanding of the vehicles we drove. We could go into another rabbit hole on this if you want later, but I don't think they understand, a lot of these new drivers, what 80,000 pounds at 60 miles an hour can do. And if they tailgate, way we see them every day on the highway, with some expectation of being able to stop like they can in their Prius, they're in for a heck of a shock. So as the caliber of driver has declined, and I say that with respect to the new good drivers who take their careers seriously. I don't mean them any disrespect, but there's a lot of them out there now who are just putting in time, and they don't care. They don't take safety seriously. They don't take their moral obligation as a truck driver to keep the motoring public safe around them. They don't take that seriously enough. So enter the technology that can prevent or hopefully mitigate some of these more serious collisions. Now, moving from there to the sort of optional safety features like digital mirrors. I've used them. I've done a video on them. Mirror Eye was a system I tried, and I got used to it in a couple of hours. I could say it works. I wouldn't say it's demonstrably better than a glass mirror. I mean, I know very well how to use a glass mirror. To somebody who's new at driving, maybe they wouldn't be so reliant on what they expect to see in a glass mirror. So a digital display might work fine, but like I said, I got used to it, but I still prefer the glass.
Yeah.
So I don't see a huge advantage there. Part of the marketing with the digital mirrors is it'll save 1 or 2% in fuel consumption. I say, well, stick your 2% where the sun doesn't shine. I'd rather be able to see what I'm doing and understand what I'm looking at than be, doing this for the sake of fuel economy. There's other ways of getting better fuel mileage.
Right. I was in Oakville back in late April I was a guest speaker regarding training and truck safety and stuff and inspections and that with Concrete Ontario, I think it was. And they had one of the guys that, and I don't remember exactly what his title is, but he's like the head of the research and development division of Mack Trucks in Canada. And he was there demonstrating about these digital mirrors and whatnot. And one of the things that I thought was kind of cool, although it would probably take, like you said, a couple hours of adjustment time and whatnot. But for drivers that are, actually, maybe I'll go back to this in 1 second. Have you heard of cars nowadays that actually have like this, I don't know if it's an AI integrated or a camera system, kind of like Face ID on an iPhone that actually looks at your face and can detect when you're starting to get drowsy or fall asleep and whatnot? Mm-hmm. Well, there was a similar technology that was used in this mirror that can detect when your head would move forward or back. And based on how you were looking at the mirror, if you were trying to look forward to see more of, let's say, on the blind side of the back of your trailer, as you look forward, the mirror would turn a little bit to give you a better view, and it would move like that as your head is moving back and forth.
Yep. Okay.
And I thought that was really interesting. A cool feature that I may not have thought of, or anybody I thought would have thought of when they were just talking about just digital mirrors, right? I thought. Well,
I'm sure when they were developing them, that would have been one of the things that came up in the driver focus groups. Mm-hmm. Because we all know, right? If you're looking in a mirror, by moving your head, the angle of view changes.
Yeah.
It doesn't with a digital mirror unless you put in the camera technology that you're talking about.
That's right.
So I had an experience years ago. I was driving through New Orleans somewhere, or Louisiana, and on one of those highways that's built over the bayou. And the road drives along flat for a while, and it goes over a little hump like this where the canal passes underneath it for the ships. Yep. And I came over one of these little humps, and there was a car stopped in my lane. And there was another car to my left that I was just aware of. Mm-hmm. I had a half a second to look into my mirror and realize that car was far enough back that I could make the lane change. So, I mean, that's familiarity, right? It's trust. Right. I know what I'm looking at. If that scenario had happened today with a digital mirror, I don't know if I would recognize or trust that instant look in my mirror that I have to be able to put those pieces together in my mind in a very short moment of time. Yeah. If I had to look in that mirror and think, what am I looking at here? Well, I'd have been over top of that car. Now, that's one moment. That's one experience. Yeah. So I'm not going to, damn the things just because of that. But the point is, drivers need to be able to trust what they're seeing. And if they have to start rearranging their thinking to accommodate these digital mirrors, I wonder what's the point?
Right.
And glass mirrors are cheap.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The cameras don't break in them and whatever.
Is there anything over the past, let's say, decade that you have seen developed in the trucking industry geared towards safety where you had this like, oh my goodness, that's it. That's a cool idea or a cool invention. Is there something that just kind of blew your mind?
That's a good question. I hate to say it, but no, nothing. Well, except the forward collision mitigation. I will give that probably my highest mark.
Right.
Even though it still needs work. We're not there yet. But I think given the number of rear enders that we see, bad ones where guys are just piling into stop traffic because they're looking at their phones, then if that system can intervene and prevent or mitigate the damage in a collision like that, then yes, I'm all over it. But before we declare it ready for prime time, let's make sure we've got everything tuned in so that the brakes aren't applying all by themselves, in the middle of the night or something like that and scare the crap out of you. That happened to me once. I was test driving a truck. I won't mention the name. Yep. But just going down there was a new system on the truck, and they were all really proud of it. And going down through a busy interchange in Charlotte somewhere, I might have just given it away. The brakes applied hard, like a hard punch application. And of course, I, woke right up. Not that I wasn't awake, but I mean, I really had my attention now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I spent the next 10 seconds in moving traffic trying to see what I'd hit.
Yeah.
So my attention was totally unfocused on what was going on in front of me, because I'm trying to find out what I just ran over.
Right.
Where's the efficacy in that? How safe is that when these events happen?
It created a dangerous situation.
It created a dangerous situation that wasn't already there.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I worry about it.
You think we'll ever reach a point of full autonomy in these trucks and that?
It'll happen, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not in Canada for a long time,
Yeah.
but certainly in areas of the U.S. where it's feasible, like the Southwest, where the roads are almost always clear and dry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around them enough and written about them enough to know that their safety record is already superior to human drivers. The number of crashes per million miles or whatever metric you want to use. It's a lot lower than human drivers are.
Yeah.
The problem now really is the edge cases, the ones that are completely off the chart, unpredictable, something you can't train the AI to handle. I can't even think of a scenario, that you couldn't train it for. But anyway, that's why it's taking so long to move this forward to get final acceptance. Plus, the general public isn't really keen on the idea of sharing the road with a truck with nobody behind the wheel, even if they are statistically going to be involved in fewer crashes than human piloted trucks.
Right. Well, my thought would have been like weather scenarios, torrential storms, winds, snow and whatnot, that there's certain things that somebody in a vehicle, you can build a list of 100 different scenarios with a car that might cut off a transport or brake check a transport or side swipe or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That the truck would have sensors or can. But I mean, like weather, there's almost an endless amount of possibilities as to what type of scenario where a truck could get into. That's where my thought would be in this autonomous world, is how it would handle such a thing, right?
Well, I think there again, limit the areas that they operate geographically based on the likelihood or the risk of weather. For example, running between Phoenix and Dallas.
Yeah.
Certain times of the year you may see a few tornadoes in that alley, but otherwise, hurricanes don't happen there. Snow doesn't happen there. Torrential rains may happen, but I also think, and this is just me, that the dispatchers or whoever's sending these trucks out into the real world will have to be aware of the weather.
Yeah.
And if there's, serious risk of a torrential downpour and limited visibility and what have you, then maybe you park the autonomous truck, for a period of time, let the storm go through. But that's why you're not going to see it, up in the Dakotas and certainly across Highway 11 and 17 through Northern Ontario, sure. If ever, but for a very, very long time. Even on the 401, I don't think that would be an ideal candidate, between, Quebec City and Windsor. I think the weather there could be too unpredictable. So we're probably going to be safe here in Canada for, I would say, at least another 10 years before we see many of them. They're already running in the U.S. on that, Phoenix and Dallas corridor and others. And I say, okay, well, fine, if that's what you want to do. If you look at the demographics, the hardest driver to find these days is a long haul driver.
Right. So
here you have a long haul application. I forget the mileage between Phoenix and Dallas, but basically it's a 2-day trip.
Yeah.
So that would be if a single driver was doing it a 4-day ride, you don't want to be home or gone for 4 days, then let the computer run it.
Yeah.
The long haul model now where you get into a truck on Monday and you go to Vancouver, then to LA, and then, up to Moncton and then back to Chicago, and you're out for 2 weeks. Drivers just don't want to do that. So, we're going to have to change the way we route trucks, hub and spoke operations as opposed to just, long haul over the road, stay out there until you drop. But somewhere in the middle, the autonomous trucks will fill in some of that gap in areas where drivers just don't want to do that kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I tell the students is that like when it comes to a daily inspection to ensuring that the truck is roadworthy, I said, really, your daily inspection should start with an inspection of yourself to determine whether you are mentally and physically and whatnot able to operate the vehicle and stuff. Because you can determine that the truck is mechanically sound, and unless there's a hazard on the road or something that's hit or whatever, by the time you get to the end of that 500-mile trip, the truck mechanically probably has not changed from when you inspected it that morning. That's just the general average.
Mm-hmm.
But your mentality as the driver could fluctuate a lot to, going through times of fatigue, maybe you're ill or whatever. So the operation of the truck really comes down to the driver. So the truck could be brand new right off the assembly line. It's only as good as the person behind the wheel. So that's why inspecting yourself is a big part. And I can see how an autonomous vehicle like that essentially would kind of negate that fact when it comes to driver error and driver awareness and physical and mental ability from a computer chip, right? So we're coming up on about an hour here now. So I do have one more question, or maybe two more questions I want to ask. And so I kind of built this hypothetical here. If you were, when it comes to trucking and everything you've seen over the past 50 years and how it was back in the 70s and 80s to what you're seeing happen now, hypothetically, if you were in a position of power, like at a parliament level, and you could make a change across the industry, and I don't mean to put you right on the spot and get it, because it may be one of those kind of brainstorming answers or whatever, but what would you like to see happen in the trucking industry to promote safer roads and that?
I think we need to deliberately demand more from our drivers in terms of training, and knowledge of what they're doing. Accordingly, we need to pay them more.
Right.
And we need to take the driver's word for a lot more stuff. If a driver thinks it's unsafe or dangerous or too risky to proceed for whatever reason, everything is go, go, go. You promise the customer it will be delivered, at a certain time, and if it doesn't get there, then all hell rains down on you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. It's a business decision, but you put those drivers in positions where the choice of whether to continue or not is not really up to them. Fleets, not all fleets, some fleets, put the safety first thing in their mottos and their propaganda, but I don't think they all practice that. There's always pressure. Mm-hmm. So if we had better drivers, if we demanded more from them, if we paid them more, I think that would engender a lot more respect across the industry. And by saying that, I'm saying tighten up the licensing requirements, make the tests difficult to pass. The various ministries of transportation across Canada have got to start taking safety seriously, and they don't, to the best of my understanding. And I've written enough about this over the years. Taking a few trucks out of service at a scale, for bad brakes is not affecting safety in any measurable way. Right. When these carriers that continue to operate and just change names and set up shop in a new city the next week or next month, that's flouting the laws. That's flouting safety. It's disregarding safety. The power exists. The laws can be written to overcome that if there was a sense of urgency to do so. Apparently there isn't, at least according to some people. Yeah. I differ. I don't agree with that. But I think we're not going to go back to a day when trucking was fun again, with CBs and cowboy boots and, chili and the truck stops. All that romantic stuff is over. It's a brutally difficult job. It's demanding as hell. And the people who do it, burn out really quickly. Yeah. Especially the new ones.
And I find there's a high standard now that the truck drivers have to live up to, especially to the general public from what's been, like I said, blown apart in these mass social media exploits and whatnot. So the expectation of truck drivers is higher than it's been in decades, right?
Yep, that's true.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me at all regarding like whether it be training or whatever?
Yeah, I've written a couple of articles recently, columns about training and licensing.
Sure.
Specifically, I interviewed a person, a Serco examiner, and this person told me some of the shenanigans that go on during a driving exam. Could curl your hair.
Yeah.
You're in the Sudbury area.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Do you have 4-lane highways up there? How do you test for that component of the exam?
We do. We have a couple of small stretches, what we would call our Sudbury bypass.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So we have it's portion of 17. So we probably for about, I would say maybe 25 kilometer stretch here between the west side of Sudbury and again heading out west on 17, and then there's some small portions between here and getting to. Well, maybe there isn't actually. No, so actually you're right. That would be the only 4-lane portion would be that 17 bypass. Yeah, it's the only 100 kilometer an hour zone that we have. Which would, like I said, just be that 25 kilometer stretch west of Sudbury. But yeah, that's the only one that we got. Unless we head down south. I mean, if we go south of Sudbury between us and the French River, which is about another, I would give or take maybe about a 50 to 70 kilometer stretch there. I don't remember what distance that is. Yeah. That's another 4-lane stretch there. Yeah. Yeah, we tend to do most of our training in town. We do some highway driving. It's usually as a way to sort of, well, when I did it anyways, I would have certain goals in place from Monday to Thursday that we have to hit. And then on Fridays, what I've done in the past is, congratulate students with like a highway ride. Let's take a couple hour drive and we'll go, to this one truck stop for lunch or something like that. And,
yeah.
But we tend to spend most of the time in town, shifting and dealing with congestion and traffic and pedestrians and whatnot, and tighter maneuvering areas. And a part of that is practicing, where they're going to be driving and stuff for their road test route, and then getting back to, downtown tighter corridors, railroad tracks, and, trying to implement some of the stuff that maybe an over-the-road driver might not see, but they're not surprised to deal with it when they get into Montreal or get into Thunder Bay or get into whatever, Toronto or Mississauga or something like that. Because a lot of the training, I would say about 70% of it is done in town. Yeah.
Do you think MELT is adequate? Yeah, I mean, you teach it. You've got a program. What do you think of it?
I liked the way that it was before. I do agree that in the effort of creating safer roads, that it was something that needed to be looked at and maybe create and develop some form of mandatory training. What they did with it, I still don't feel like it's enough. When you break down the required hours, the minimum of that 103.5, well, 36 and a half of that is in class. 32 hours of it is driving. 18 hours of it is like backing time, and 17 hours is the requirement for yard, like uncoupling, coupling, and inspection stuff. I think the hours and stuff are okay. I would like to see it to be more, because I feel like it would be a more relaxed teaching environment. It wouldn't be as pressured on the student. The student wouldn't feel as much pressure. We could take time to show them real world aspects of driving. I think a longer course, which we do have, like our minimum 103.5 can be done in about a 4-week program. And then we also have a 6-week, 200-hour plus program as well, which is backed by the TTSAO and whatnot. So that tends to be the more common one. The individuals that we get that lean more towards the basic or the minimum is usually a more of a corporate level. Like when a company has a driver that may have their D license already, they're paying for this driver or employee on their behalf, so they send them in. I need them to get their A's, they can get back here and start working again, right? That tends to be more on the 4-week side. But people that are coming in, just looking for a career change, they opt to, are usually going to be in the 6-week program. But in either case, I liked the way it was before, in the sense that maybe not in the sense of the test being able to be challenged, where you could just, call Uncle Jim on a Monday, and, hey, can I borrow your truck on Tuesday? I have a road test. I want to see if I can get this Class A license. Well, that was a bit wishy-washy, and I can see how that can raise some eyebrows. But in the form of training and testing requirements on the student and examiner level, the examiner had a lot of discretion that they could use, to decide, that was a good inspection. That was a good, thorough inspection. This is what we need on the roads, and your driving was great. And it was more left up to the examiner's opinion of you as a driver than it was boxes that are checked on a tablet. So I don't want to say that I'm indifferent. I like that there's training that is mandatory. It's just that the requirements and the testing criteria, I think, can be tweaked more towards a real world application. But I do like the way it was before, but in the training and the testing, not so much the how easy it was to get the license, if that makes sense.
Well, this might not be a fair question, and you feel free to edit it out later if you want.
Sure.
How's your pass rate compare on the long course versus the basic melt?
That's actually a really good question. So we have, I think, for our student flow and the amount of students that we get through the school, we have a good pass rate. Now, keep in mind, when MELT started, if I remember the statistics correctly, like for the first year after MELT was implemented, the entire province was suffering like an 85% fail rate, that it was very rare that somebody would pass in their first attempt. And that was the case. That only dropped by like another 5%, 15% for the next 2 or 3 years ongoing. So it probably wasn't, being 2017, it probably wasn't until 2020 or 2021 that all of the schools around the province were like, okay, now we know exactly what their expectations of ours are of us, and we can build our curriculum and our program and our teaching and whatnot to match all that. I would say if we have a class of 10 people, I would not be wrong in saying that at least 2, maybe 3 of those 10 would not pass in their first attempt. I don't like to use the word fail, but and that's not uncommon. And all of the trainers that we have here are experienced and have all the tools that are necessary to teach all these students. And sometimes the failure doesn't come down to the way that they were taught or the handling of the vehicle. Sometimes it's something as simple as ignoring an ambulance that had its lights on. I mean, it's instant disqualification right there. As soon as the examiner has to say or intervene because of a dangerous act that they're about to see, like, hold on, you're about to hit that, then you're done right there, right? So it can be something so simple. The backing is one that's tough. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort in the backing maneuvers, and trying to perfect this alley dock or 90-degree back. That's one of the most difficult ones that you can perform. So in a sense that they've made that part of the test hard enough that it starts to weed out the people that don't understand the concept behind backing, and you're not going to get it until you do, right? So that is one of the highest, I guess I don't want to say failure rate, but one of the highest leading causes to a disqualification would be that backing. In the Class D world, very rarely. I would say I think I'd be right in saying we have a 90% pass rate in Class D. Class A, I would say, everybody gets it. Everybody eventually gets the license. How many attempts it took them and how much they had to come back and do some retraining or whatever to work on whatever they needed to. First attempt, I would say probably 75 to 80% pass rate.
That's pretty good.
It's not uncommon for somebody to come back. We've had days where we've had 2 or 3 days of testing in a week, which would test probably 7 or 8 students. All of them pass, which was great. Next week, we have another 2 days. The first day, 4 fail. The second day, two fail, two pass. Like, so it's always going to be up and down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need to edit any of that out.
Okay.
It's just
Good.
that's the name of the game. It's that's the world that we live in, right? So any teaching, whether it be from a school to the trades to the trucking industry, you're going to have strong, you're going to have not so strong, people that have to build up a little bit more. When we get students that generally come for the 4 weeks, so like I said, it's more on a corporate level. That's for the mandatory, the 103.5. They come from backgrounds that are sometimes very industrial or farming, or their dad owns a trucking company, or they work in construction, or some of them work for towing companies and stuff. So they already have this industrial sort of background.
Okay.
Backing trailers and knowing components of the vehicle, suspension, steering, air brake components, tires and whatnot. They're familiar with a lot of this stuff. But when we have somebody, who I was a massage therapist for 25 years and I want to try something different. This is going to be it could be a tough
harder with them.
Yeah, we're going to have to work a little harder. Yeah. And so it all depends on the person, right? The tools are the same. That a skill saw is what you need to cut a 2x4, but if you don't never use one before, or it's alien to you, then it'll take a little bit of training, right?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Any piece of advice that you have for any drivers that are watching? We're going to have a bit of an audience on this. So anything that you want to leave with anybody?
Take the job seriously. I mean, this is me, but over the course of my career, I made a point of reading all the trade magazines I could, trying to learn about the industry and learn about my equipment, how the engine worked, how the clutch worked, how the brakes worked, how the tires worked. I didn't have to, but I think it made me a better driver, understanding my equipment. Today, I think with so much automation, from the transmission on down, and some of the safety systems you were referring to earlier, the driver is not so much a part of the truck as I think we once were back in our generation. And I think that's probably not a good thing for safety and professionalism overall.
Yep.
So I would urge drivers who are serious about a career in driving, in trucking, to take the effort to learn all you can about the industry and your equipment. Ignore what you see on social media. I mean, laugh at it, but don't take it as gospel. And, the truck stop lawyers who will tell you, oh, you can do this or you can't do that. Take that with a complete grain of salt. And if you're still curious, get online and look up an answer. The resources are there, and they're easier to find now than ever. But you still have to go and look and ask the questions, because it's a never-ending learning experience. I think I know the industry pretty well after almost 50 years, but I still learn stuff.
Yeah.
So, take it seriously. It's a good career if you put your money into it.
That's a great piece of advice. Leslie, do you have anything to add?
I have tons of questions now, but we're going a little bit long. So I just wanted to, for anyone who maybe wants to learn more about you, is there a website, or where could people go to maybe reach out to you or learn more?
Well, you can find me on trucknews.com. I contribute 3 or 4 articles a month to there regularly. I'm also doing a podcast now with Stan Campbell called Truck News Talk. That's at trucknewstalk.com. You can find Stan and I over there. I've got a wicked archive of articles on my former U.S. website. I used to write for Heavy Duty Trucking, HDT. All the articles are still there at truckinginfo.com. There's lots of material there. Getting hold of me, if you click on one of the links at the bottom of a truck news story, it's the best way to get hold of me. The address is jpark@newcom, NEWCOM.ca. That's probably the best way to get hold of me via email. And I'm not a real big social media player, so I mean, I dabble, but I wouldn't put it down as a contact point. I am on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
I found you on LinkedIn and you messaged me back, so that's one spot.
I do pay attention, yeah.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
so much.
Yes,
Yeah.
this was so good. And I'll
Well, thank
include
you.
all those links in the show notes so that anyone wants to learn more, read some of your articles, listen to your podcast, they can do that.
Perfect. Thanks. And if
Thanks
you ever
for
want to
taking
try
the
it
time
again,
out.
I'm willing. Do it
For
again
sure.
sometime.
Absolutely. Okay,
For sure.
thank you so much, Jim.
All right,
I
Adam.
hope to talk to
Leslie.
you again soon. Yeah,
Great
you as
talking
well.
to you.
Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you.
S.T.A.R. Podcast.